All right. We are here, episode number 151, the Mind Your Business podcast, a special Mother's Day edition of the podcast. I'm your host, Champ Ron, entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. But today we're going to abandon entrepreneurship, real estate, and some of those other subjects today because we're here on a special day where we recognize mothers and mother figures and women who took up the mantle to help raise other human beings, which we know is a chore in itself. And there's a special place above for those women who have chosen or had it chosen for them to help rear all the rest of us knuckleheads out there. At least some of y'all probably saying speak for yourself, but I know a lot of y'all were knuckleheads out there, and a lot of women had to deal with y'all and pray for y'all and keep a lot of things going for a lot of y'all. I know certainly from myself. And so hope that you're doing well. I know that there's tough times out there all around. Many of you may be enduring tough times. And so definitely shout out to you here on this Mother's Day. And we're going to talk about some subjects all related to motherhood. But I have a special guest today that I'm so excited to have. My soror sister from the great sorority of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Yes, that's right, the greatest one. So, and of the finest sorority. And so she is here joining us. She is a sexuality and intimacy coach. So she's definitely right to talk about this subject. So shout out to all of you that are on Facebook Live joining us. Y'all jump on in here on this Mother's Day. Before y'all get to your Mother's Day activities, make sure that you join with us. Subscribe, 5-star. That helps us connect with more people to get this content. Shout out to Chris Eagleston, fly like an eagle, baby. Say happy Mother's Day to all mothers. Yes, sir. Definitely indeed. Lee, how you doing? John, what's going on? Katrina, Monique, how y'all doing? Glad to see everybody jumping in all over. For those of you that are on Spreaker.com, those of you that are on IG Live, those of you that are on Facebook Live, thank y'all so much. And then share this podcast. Share it to your mothers. Share it to the folks that love you. And share it to about 10 people that you know don't like you. And so make sure that they have it as well and wish them well. And even if you got to grit your teeth doing it, just go and do it. Okay. So they can at least let them get the content, and then you can go back to cussing them and doing whatever you was doing. All right. So Heather, what's going on, girl?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good. And you?
I'm doing wonderful. Yep. I am doing wonderful. So let's dig right in because obviously you have a tremendous story of motherhood in your profession. And so let's wrap some today about motherhood.
Okay.
Because obviously I'm no expert on the subject.
I always say if you have a mother.
Yeah, I have a mother. Yes, I am a son. This thing, I'm a son, I'm a grandson.
There you
go. Yeah, all of the above. So I guess let's talk a little bit, Heather. So what is mother? Let's start here. When you hear the word motherhood, and you think of motherhood, and you think of your experience and the experience of women in your circle, what comes to mind?
Yeah. It's one of those, I hate to use the word sorority, but it's kind of it is kind of a sorority type of thing. As far as there is a sisterhood and bonding amongst other people who've been through this same journey, and not even been through, but everybody's still continuing through this journey. So even with everybody being at different points, there is a certain type of camaraderie that happens when we go, oh, you a mom too? Oh, girl, me too. So and so it feels in that way like it is a secret society of sorts.
Oh, a secret society. Oh my goodness.
A secret society.
The girl get deep with it. What
I mean.
A secret society.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. And so, talk about, I guess, when for yourself. I know you can speak for yourself. when you that feeling of when you first become a mother, because here's the thing that for me as a father, there was just no way to
Mm-hmm.
prepare, right? There was nothing I could have
Right.
did when it happens, it comes. But for you as a mother,
Mm-hmm.
is it something that you already can really prepare for? When you first become a
Nah,
mother, you first find out, or
no.
just like us men, you just kind of clueless and you just like
Just get thrown into the water like everybody
right,
else.
right,
I would
right.
say this for me. So I became a mother unexpectedly. I was one of those
Okay,
college kids that came home with a baby.
no, it's
So
okay.
definitely was not part of my plan.
Yeah.
Um, wasn't anything I was looking forward to. And if you knew me as a younger person prior
Hmm.
to having my first kid, I was the one that I always told you, child, I don't want no kids. What am I gonna do with a child? Because it just wasn't my plan.
Right.
I grew up, and I'm from a large family, so I grew up the youngest of 7. When I came into the world, I already had 2 nieces and a nephew, and I
Right.
was
Right.
6 weeks younger than my nephew. So I came into a large family
There you
with
go.
family people.
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't want to have anything to do with that. But of course, I found out I was pregnant. I was about 18 weeks pregnant when I found out I was pregnant.
Whoa, whoa. So you were already what, like 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, halfway
Oh,
through just about.
yeah. I was gonna
And
say.
so
So wait. Hold on, Heather. So
yeah,
so
yeah.
you're four
Typical
four or
though.
5 months in. So through that
Uh-huh.
time, you didn't. There was nothing that signaled to you. Well, I guess you were so young.
I was
That.
young, right? So I was
Yeah.
20 when I had my oldest. And so, nobody, you really don't have a blueprint like this is what it feels like. And especially then, a lot of
Right.
people were not just talking to young people about this is what happens. So this is what, you end up in situations where, I didn't have stuff like morning sickness. I was 20 years old, still partying, going out, doing stuff, doing step shows, having a
Right.
good time. So there
So
was
you out there
no
stepping.
indication. Baby, in a step show, just freshly crossed with my fresh little Z5B letters on. You couldn't tell me nothing. Stomach just flat.
You didn't
What?
think nothing about, okay, my stomach getting a little bigger, or maybe I'm picking up a
It
little
didn't
weight in the
know.
neck.
I didn't pick up any weight.
Wow.
I was a stick figure. And the
Yeah.
only reason that I found out I was pregnant is because I came home from spring break and I had a cold I couldn't shake. And so I just
Okay.
decided to go to the doctor. And
Yeah.
then she was like, baby, that's not a cold. So that was the only thing.
Now, how you
So of
go?
course,
You
I'm
so you
totally shocked.
right. See, but you get to the okay. So you get to the
So
doctor, right? I'm trying to unpack all this because this is blowing my mind. So
yeah,
you get to the doctor. Okay, you're a young
right.
lady in
But
college.
this is typical first time pregnancies, though. This is
Yeah,
typical for first time pregnancies,
that's
especially young
crazy.
people. And because nothing really changes. If you if you were like me, I was always active. I was always moving around.
Yeah.
Um, just a typical old, 20-year-old. But yeah, no indication. I just remember being a little bit sleepy and then like I had a cold or something. I was like, I probably just need to go to the doctor and get this checked out. And when she's coming back, she's like, well, she's gonna run all these tests. And I'm looking at her like, ma'am, I don't do pregnancy. So that's not a
You
thing for me.
know,
So,
I don't do pregnancy.
I don't do pregnancy. And
But you
she
do
was
what you
like,
had
you
been
do
doing.
now. So
Now, hell, they talk about I don't do pregnancy. You do what you had been doing.
I don't do pregnant. Yeah, exactly. But again, 20 years old, not knowing nothing, thinking, well,
Right,
I
right,
jumped up
right,
and down a couple of times. I think I'm good,
right, right.
just with no knowledge.
Right.
So you come into this thing like, wait, you giving me a whole human to be responsible for? Are you
Right, right.
kidding me? Like, I don't
And
even
what about the step
wash my
show?
own clothes. What's going on? I can't be in a step show with a baby.
You'll be holding the baby doing your thing.
Right, just still there, honey.
Right.
But
So
I think what was so funny about it though is that one, it wasn't expected. Two, I didn't have any signs to indicate that I was pregnant. Um, and three, I was in the middle of my sophomore year of college,
right,
well, the end of my sophomore year of college, so I really wasn't, worried about a baby.
right,
Um, and it was scary. And to be honest, it was scary, and it took me a while to wrap my head around that I have to be responsible for a child that's
right.
supposed to be attached to me. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? Because how I'm gonna live on campus with a baby.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I was totally not prepared to be anybody's mother. And looking back, I apologize to my 21-year-old now because I don't know how he survived me.
Right.
But you learn. Those
Right.
are things that end up happening.
Yeah.
You
So then,
find out, and from go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say what school were you? Not to interrupt you, but what school were you at?
I was attending the Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee,
There you go. Okay.
home of the Tigers. So,
So you're there at
I
TSU,
think for
and
me
continue what you
though.
were saying because I interrupted you.
Oh no problem. Well, the thing about it, and I will say this to be honest, if I didn't have a support system of my friends at the time, I don't think I would have been able to even deal with the fact that I was pregnant, let alone motherhood. And so, like a lot of those, like my best friend, I always shout out my best friend Pia because I feel like we were like parenting together. But
Right.
she had my back, and she still has my back. And that was the thing. She was like, "We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna do this and just do that." And I'm like, "Oh, my life is over. Blah blah blah. I'm dying." She was just like, "Girl, get yourself together. We got to make a plan." So,
Right.
it took a couple of heads to come together to figure out what are we gonna do, because now the course of my life has changed.
Right.
And now I have to figure out how to incorporate everything I want to do with this. I got this imminency of a child that may just show up, whenever this child shows up.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, that's true.
just having to learn how to, redirect some of the plans that I had for myself, number one, but also adapt to something. You may have to let something go in order to make sure that this happens in the way that it needs to happen. So a lot of growing up had to happen within the course of like 4 or 5 months, since I was already kind of behind the curve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so Heather, let's unpack this, because you hit on something really, I think, critical in this whole process. Is you talked about the support system, and unpack
definitely
that, because especially for you, I think
Mm-hmm.
support system is important no matter what age, no matter what your situation is with your family, whether married, all that type of thing. And we got the stigmas that kind of go around. And so for you as a young mother, you're sophomore in college, talk about that support system, and then talk about, did you face any, whether kind of explicit or maybe implicit for you, kind of stigma around your age and your situation at that time, and then being pregnant? Because one of the things I think is starting to evolve more that didn't back then. You and I are close to that same age. I was in college at that time too. So, and the stigma of not being married, which folks are still, some folks are still on that. They're always going to be hung up on that from the religious point of view. But just overall, that stigma and that negativity sometimes of people judging you and mothers all over the world, because every situation doesn't look like this cookie cutter situation that sometimes people want to project on others. And so talk about your support system, Heather, and then talk about, did you face any of that, and then how did you deal with that as you faced it, if you did?
Well, I will say again, the support system, having the friends, like I said, my friend Pia, definitely, like, we met in college, we became roommates, and even still to this day, we are very close. She was very much hands-on. If I didn't have her, the support system, and I'll say this, I lived in a dorm when I was pregnant. And so even my dorm mates, everybody who knew me and knew that I was pregnant, was very much a circle that I needed. My other friend at the time, her name was Megan. She and her boyfriend, they would go and make sure my snacks were good. Like, there were people who just kind of came together, and they were like, okay, you don't have to be alone doing this. And I think that that's very important, especially when you're talking about being a young college kid. Families in Memphis, of course, growing up, totally religious child. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, so there's a whole lot.
Yeah, you were
I was way out there. So
that's deeply religious.
yeah. Right, exactly. So growing up that way, and really having to brace myself for whatever I was about to come home to, because I came home that summer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I was going to walk into, and to be honest, I was afraid to talk to my parents. I didn't know what that was going to look like. I was really concerned that I disappointed them. Like, y'all gonna send me off to college and I came back with a baby. No
Yeah,
degree,
right,
with a
right.
baby. But, you know, coming back to all of that. And I think what was important, and I always say my friends were important, but what was way more important than that was my dad. My
Mm-hmm.
dad had my back like nobody else. And when I realized that as long as, my parents had my back, I couldn't care less what anybody else said. And I had people from my church come up to me. And
Mm-hmm.
this lady in particular came up to me and she said, "Your life is ruined." I remember this. Like every time I see her now, I just want to throat punch her. But but she told me that. She was like, "Your life is ruined. What are you gonna do now?" And that is what made me go back to school. I had that boy in August. I had him August 20th. 5 days later, I enrolled in school in Memphis,
There you
and
go.
I never stopped going to school. And so I still graduated on time because that particular woman told me my life was ruined. And so when I graduated, and still, I still graduated on time before some of my friends. And
Right.
she came back. She was like, "I knew you could do it." And I was like, "Lady, get out of my face." So
Right.
that was the real time
Right.
for me that really made me own motherhood. Like, okay, I got this kid. I got this. I got to show this. I have to show my child that nothing, can stop you if you don't want it to. And then, so I went into mom mode. I think that was what really pushed me into that mode, because I'm like, I'm not going to let first of all, anybody else dictate to me, what my future is going to look like. And secondly,
Right.
I have a whole lot riding on me, which is this child that I just brought into this world. So I want him to be equally as proud of me, but I also want to show him that I'm here and I'm willing to take care of him, and that, whatever that means, in
Right.
whatever way I need to take care of him. So if I didn't have that support system, if I didn't have people, in my ear like, "Girl, you better forget all that stuff," I don't think I'd be able to do it. And I think that it would have been a different journey for me, and I don't think I would have been successful at it at all. So it's
Yeah.
very much needed.
No, I appreciate you saying that, Heather, because, again, there's that stigma that comes, and then
Mm-hmm.
people can be,
Yeah.
even sometimes when they do mean well, people can be so judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
even within
Right.
religious
Right.
settings. That's a whole nother podcast. But people can be
Okay.
deeply, yeah, they can be deeply judgmental, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because like I say, again, it doesn't fit the box that they were told. And,
Exactly.
and in some cases, because theirs might have been 21 years before yours, it's easy to then, take up that mantle that, you're high and
Right.
mighty now. Because I
Yeah.
always used to joke about this when it came to things like that, is that sometimes, the people those ladies that are sitting in white across that front row,
Mm-hmm.
everybody that knows about their time is in a home or 6 feet under. So there's nobody
Right.
around to tell it.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you can become high
Exactly.
and mighty, right? When Cecil and
Right.
all them are gone and
Exactly.
nobody's around to tell your story but you. And so you can make your story out to
Exactly.
be
And
whatever
then,
it
and there
was.
was no social media to keep it
Right,
going
right,
too.
right. And they wasn't stepping on anybody's college campus. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's easy, for people to be like that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Um, as you go down that path,
Absolutely.
as you go down that pathway, Heather, of motherhood. So you have your first child, you're having, subsequent
Mm-hmm.
children. Does the process each time become easier, or does it kind of does each one sit on its own tub, I guess?
I,
Yeah.
I think for me, everything, I'll say after they get here, once I actually see their little faces, it's about the same. But every time I am shocked. I go through a whole, grieving process. I don't know what it is about. And then I end up loving pregnancy. And that's the funny thing. But I think for me, because they've all been born at different points of my life,
Mm-hmm.
where sometimes I can look back and I say, I really needed that. Like
Yeah.
I can really appreciate the journey for this particular time in my life. For example, my dad passed away in 2004. I was
Okay.
really at a low point, and I was really, needing something, and not to say I got pregnant on purpose because I was sad, but it just so happened that my he'll be almost 15. He's almost 15, he's 14. But when I found out I was pregnant with him, it was a few months after my dad passed. And I just remember pouring all of that, moving that sadness of missing my dad, and pouring a different energy into, I got a baby coming. I got to, really, just work on, making sure this child is okay. I think I needed that, honestly, as much as, we say that we don't have children for, it's not a good idea to have kids at these places. I think mentally I needed it because it put me in a different mindset. It helped me to heal. It helped me to pour some of those things that I was missing from my dad passing into this new little human that's going to need all of this positive energy. And so I was able to pull off those memories and put it into him and just be happy and excited and in that moment. So I think that each of them I have a different connection to each of my children. And I think that when the journey is pretty much the same, but at the same time, it's something unique about each and every pregnancy, each and every child that brings a different type of light and energy to your life. And I really appreciate that. Even though I got 179 million kids, I appreciate every last one of them.
Yeah. And you talked about, Heather, because earlier you talked about your dad being such a support for your first pregnancy. And, I think, a lot of times, dads in that scenario can be a little bit less on the judgmental side and more, they may be disappointed, but at the same time, they want to be supportive. They know that they got to activate into that support role. And I think sometimes their temperament in general can help ease, more on the mother and on everybody else that may be freaking out and thinking of things very narrow-minded. Sometimes, men and dads have a way of looking at things holistically and not, get into that freaking out mode. So I imagine when he transitions life, again, that, like you mentioned, that's a kind of a sour point for you, but at the same time, you're able to then transition and bring new life in, through that child. And so, I think it all comes, then back full circle. And
it
so,
does.
Now today, so now you're, so your youngest child is how old?
She's 2.
2. Okay. Yeah. So you've recently gone through this. So you've been pregnant. You've gone through this several times. That's why you were perfect for this episode, Heather. Because you've done motherhood, to the fullest.
A lot.
All right. And so, let me ask you this: compare your 2-year-old with your 21-year-old in terms of that process. I imagine there's, like you say, other than seeing their little faces, it's probably a complete different situation. I mean, obviously you've grown and you're completely different. So if you walk back 21 years ago to then 2 years ago, roughly, compare and contrast that for me.
I think the biggest difference for me, first of all, as a parent, of course, by the time my 2-year-old was born, my oldest was 17, 18 years old. Right. There was a lot of differences in technology. But then I was also at a point where, in my 20s, I was more worried about what other people thought about me. Yeah. And when I had her, I was about 39. There was a difference because I was settled into me. Yeah. So I could fully own, anything that came to me. Now, it was difficult in the way of, my pregnancies, and honestly, I'm blessed to say that none of my pregnancies have been like overly difficult. And I've been very blessed for that. But I probably had more attitude this time. And I think one of the reasons why is when you're sitting in the room and you got these little grays popping up, people have opinions about why you still having babies at this age. I learned, they learn my new alphabet words that I share with them. So I might have dropped a couple of new words for people, but but the difference is, I think I was way more calm. I was able to really kind of determine what I wanted as far as, my birth plan. I wasn't necessarily relying on the doctors to tell me what to do all the time, because I was like, yeah, I got this. I'm good.
Yeah, you're
Um,
right.
yeah, like I could pretty much do this. Why am I paying you? But
Right.
I was just a different person, and just having life experience under my belt, being able to really just enjoy the moment of, this is what's happening. I know what to do. Okay, I don't want this. I do want that. And to just take it in a way that it was more calming than to
Mm,
be frantic,
right.
all the time. It was way a better experience, just because I was able to just be me, you know. And then when I looked at that little face, and I feel like I had the same child twice. I really do.
Right.
Just at different times, one in the
Right.
90s, one in, whatever.
Right.
But I'm able to laugh more at motherhood. I think that when I had my first kids, I was scared, and I was trying to make sure everything was perfect and do things according to what folks told you. And then by the time I had her, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, that's fine. Pick up that pacifier off the floor, just stick
Right.
it in her mouth. So definitely not as neurotic as a
Hmm.
parent now. Just, I'm a go with the flow kind of chick. So
Right.
yeah,
There you go.
that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about your story with that is you have your first child while you're in college, and so then
Yeah.
I spoke to this judgmental piece earlier. So then you've got people in your ear, oh, this is gonna
Hmm.
ruin your life. You're too young. You're too this, and this. Then you have your last child, like you mentioned, at 39, and people are
Yeah.
again in your ear, but now on the other
In
end
my
of the
ear.
spectrum. Now they're, oh,
Right.
well, you have another baby, and you're giving birth to your own grandchildren and all this type of stuff.
Hmm.
And I
Yep.
remember used to hear
You
that in
too
our
old.
family, and folks used to get cussed out about saying stuff like that. Um,
Yes,
so
honey.
you've got to
Yes.
experience it on both of those ends of the spectrum, which to me is interesting, because a lot of people,
Right.
they have their children either young, and then that's kind of it. For a number of reasons. It could
Hmm.
be they struggle to maybe do it again. They may not find the right
Hmm.
partner. They may be waiting to get married, and if that never
Right.
happens, then they never have no other children. Or you get some people that they get married, have their children, and then that's kind of it. Maybe they get divorced
Yeah.
and have others later on. But there's so many
Hmm.
different scenarios, and what I love about your story is how you rode through that and remained strong. I hear, and you've spoken about your own strength, but then your willingness to accept, the community. Because sometimes people can, you can have that support, but it
Hmm.
comes down to you then accepting it, right?
Right. That's true.
And so you were willing and had enough courage to accept the support and not just the
Yeah.
negativity. Because sometimes as people, we're quick to adopt the negativity. We'll accept that all day.
Right.
When it's
Hmm.
negative towards us, we want to respond, we accept that. But then the positivity, sometimes either we're cynical or we're pessimistic, or we just don't
Hmm.
we don't believe we deserve it. And I wonder, do women think that they
Right. And
don't
that's
feel they
true.
deserve the support, and so then they're standoffish and push back on it,
Yeah,
so
and I think that also is how it's packaged,
mm,
because sometimes support doesn't look like that. Sometimes support doesn't seem as positive as it could be, because of maybe the way that the information has been delivered, or maybe the type of person that you're talking to. Like like I said, I'm the youngest. At that point, at least three of my sisters were already parents.
right.
My brothers were parents. And so just relying on everybody around me to, just tell me, girl, don't do that. Don't pick that baby up and burble, doing those types of things. And then watching them was one thing. But I did not accept, though. And I would say there were people who offered support and everything. And I, politely declined because of the packaging of the information.
Hmm.
Because it did, as a young mother, you're already trying to find, navigate your way into motherhood, and then you have the ones that always have something negative to offer, but they try to package it as constructive criticism. I had to learn early on that I didn't have to make myself feel bad You know, I was like, I feel bad enough because, you know, again, growing up at Venice and everything, it wasn't my plan being single, you know, and in college. That was bad enough. But I also did not need, I definitely could not, you know, accept those who wanted to offer the support in the way of, well, let me help you get back on track, girl. Let me give you some Bible study. Like, girl, I am trying to breastfeed this child. I do not want to read the Bible right now. So, you know, I think it's when they offer the support in the right way for you to accept it. So I think it's offering it in a way that is palatable for that new mother, but then also allowing them the space to say no thank you, or I'm overwhelmed right now, or maybe this isn't what I need, you know, and just being able to anticipate that for the young mothers. And I think now, as you know, kind of seasoned as I am, I try to tell people, you know, give that girl some space. She don't figure it out. That baby gonna be all right. And you know, I'll ask them if they want the help before you just decide that they need your help. So, you know.
Oh, you podcasting now, girl. You podcasting now. Look at you. Yeah, you podding. That's what you say. You podding now.
Wow.
Yeah. Amen. So talk about the relationship between mother and child. And if you want to, you could talk about relationship with your own mother. But you know, how you know, with developing that relationship, and I know it could probably go through its ebbs and flows.
It does.
You know, that relationship, you know, for sure. Yeah, to say the least, right? Because you know, a lot of people today have, you know, they take issue with the relationship with their mother wasn't fond, and it wasn't enjoyable, it wasn't loving. You know, talk about that piece of it for you, Heather. You know, how it maybe stemmed from the relationship with your mother, and then the relationship, how you pass that down to your children. Because I think, and this is the same, we'll talk about this on Father's Day. I think that people's experiences coming up obviously shape them. And I'm no psychologist or nothing like that, but they shape them. And that relationship you had with that parent, sometimes you may not even be aware of it, but you pass down the energy. Sometimes it's not always the behavior. You know, sometimes people get caught up in, well, I'm not doing like my mom did, I'm not doing like my dad did. You may not be doing the physical, you know, activity or nature of them, and you may not be verbalizing the same exact words, but you can bring the same energy, positive or and or negative, to a situation, the same energy that you received.
It's that pathology, that family pathology. But growing up in my household, again, my mom had me at 42. First of all, I will always say my mom won. That's the thing we always say. She won because she had her last child at 42. I'm currently 42, so I have no idea how my mother did that. And so my mom's 85 now. She just celebrated her 85th birthday. And I'm just so, first of all, I'm blessed to still have my mom. I'm, you know, I look up to the type of background that she had, and how she's able to raise all these different generations of people. My mom's first child was born in the 50s. So you got to think about that. And then she had me at the end of the 70s. So, you know, it was a 24-year span between me and my oldest.
So I mean, you think about that, Heather. You know, I mean, think of how much you know. So you know, you bring it all full circle. That's amazing, because you talk about the 50s. All right, so the world. I mean, the 50s was, you know, that even at that time, that's almost kind of like right at the beginning of civil rights and all those type of things. By the time you come along, you know, the Vietnam War has already been fought and is over. You done gone through you know, civil rights. You know. Black
Woodstock.
Panther Party. All that stuff is over with. And then when you grow up, and then now you start having children, your first child is kind of pre-high speed internet. You know what I mean? You know, it was like you first get to college, you know, back in those times. I mean, we were just, you know, they were just now setting up emails and getting on the World Wide Web and all that. Then you just have a 2-year-old who probably already knows how to work the iPhone better than you and I.
She's pretty much mad at me today because I got the iPad.
Think of that lifespan between you and your mother, from her having her children starting in the 50s to you having your last child here 2017, 2018. I mean, I think of how the world changed in all that short period of time. That's crazy.
It is crazy. But then think about it. At the end of the day, and I tell people all the time, that at the end of the day, we're still human. And
Right.
human nature doesn't really change, no matter where you put it, no matter where in society, and no matter what decade you put it in, you're still a human. And you still got to wake up every morning, go to sleep at night, you still need to eat. Those are basic things that have to happen as humans.
Yeah.
But I will say the difference, we talk about this all the time. One thing I do love, let me tell y'all, Ethel Lee Brown, if you ain't never had her as a mother, you missing out. But I love the fact that my mom gave me, and tell people all the time, it just ran me crazy as a kid, but she gifted me. I didn't grow up with like cable television in the house because
Right.
my parents were older when they had me. First of all, my dad was 49 when I was born.
Whoa.
They were older.
Yeah.
So you're talking about my dad was born in the 20s, 1928. My mom was born in the 30s. So these are different generations of people who had this little baby that grew up in the 80s. So I grew up, basically with, basics. And back in the day, I was like, I need cable, this and that. But I'm actually glad because I am able to be more cerebral on certain levels with my parents. And I was able to, dialogue in ways that, people my age were not able to dialogue or even sit still and keep myself occupied and things of that nature. But the other thing is my mom is an avid reader. My mom, she loves political stuff, but she loves words and all those things she instilled in me. And even now, I'm a lover of words. If you know anything about me, I love to read, I love words, and I love to write. And those are things that I'm in doodle and things like that. So my creativity comes out in those ways. But I think that having the parents at the age they were for me was the best thing for me because I'm able to offer my kids a wider variety of myself. So you don't get to see me in just one perspective. You get to see me in different perspectives. And I'm able to relate to different things and be a little bit more receptive and open to, they're going to do things different from me because they grew up in a different time from me.
Yeah.
And, just seeing that and watching my mom evolve with, grandkids, great grandkids and things of that nature, and, watch, her and my dad, try to figure out technology as it was coming along. It really helped me to see myself in the future. Like, oh, my kid's gonna be laughing at me too, huh? So
Everything comes full circle, no doubt.
Like right, because I'm like, what is this TikTok thing? And they like, really? So so I get it, and I'm glad that I'm able to see really myself, in the future through my parents' eyes. Basically I'm able to see all those things at different levels with different kids. And like I said, I just think that my parents did, a pretty great job. They didn't have all the tools they needed. They weren't necessarily, the people that went to therapy and all this stuff. And I don't think they did such a bad job raising me, but I'm also able to be compassionate enough to know that as parents, we do the best we can with what we have. And then as we learn more, we do better. And so, and I just appreciate that about them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. What we want to do real quick, Heather, is I want to share a couple videos. We had some ladies that were gracious enough to send in some videos. And so I want to do that and kind of share, some folks that have, great messages around Mother's Day. So let's do this. Okay. Let's see. Let's get our first one in here.
All righty.
This is Katrina. Becoming a mother for the first time for me was the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me. But I welcomed it. I learned from my grandmother. I learned from the other mothers in my life. And I decided to be the kind of mom to my son and eventually all three of my sons, the kind of mother that I wish I had growing up. They could talk to me about anything. There was no judgment. Of course, I got on them when it was necessary, but I wanted to have the kind of relationship with them that I didn't have. And it turned out to be pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah, so look at that. So that's phenomenal
Nice.
from my girl Katrina Upshaw. I appreciate her sharing those. And I'm gonna get your comments on that real quick here in a second, Heather.
Okay.
But I want to share one more from my girl, young mother, Monique McLean, mastermind. Yeah, that's homegirl right there. She's doing big things just like Katrina is. And so you want to hear her message real quick as well.
Okay.
Having your business peeps. My name is Monique. I also go by Mo or Mo Mastermind. When I first found out that I would be a mother, to be honest, my initial reaction was one of fear. I was young, single, gearing up to go to college, and I could not comprehend how a child would fit into the plans that I had set. It definitely was a burden in my mind before it became the true blessing that it was. And what motherhood means to me is just being willing to sacrifice all that you are, all that you have for your children. Not saying that you are going to end up sacrificing everything, but you will make sacrifices. And you have to go into it knowing that and being willing to do that for the best interest of your children. Your children come first, period. And the rewards are just so much greater. You can't even quantify the rewards or even explain them until you become a mother and see for yourself. Being able to watch these little tiny humans reach all these milestones and take little pieces of you as they grow into these amazing adults, hopefully the best pieces of you. It's just the most awe-inspiring experience. It's beautiful.
Right. So we want to thank both of those ladies, Katrina Upshaw and Monique McLean, for those beautiful kind of quick testimonies. And so, Heather, I want to get your thoughts because a lot of what they said are things that you were speaking of earlier in terms of, Katrina talked a lot about, the relationship and how legacy is passed down and how she wanted to ensure that the relationship she had with her children improved from the relationship she had with her mother. And then Monique talks, eloquently about the kind of that relationship and responsibility that mothers have in helping to rear their children to be great people down the line. And so, talk a little bit about that because you were talking, some about that, at a high level as well. So,
yeah. Well, let me just say that whole fear factor of motherhood is real. And like I said, whether it's your first one or your fifth one, there is some fear that's associated with knowing that there's another human coming into this world that you got to be responsible for. So I definitely understand that. But also, as she said, she wanted to have a different relationship than she had from her mom or her parents. And so I totally can relate to that as well, because I always say that, given the circumstances of the type of families dynamic we had and just, background being conservative, my parents are pretty conservative. I did want to make those changes as well. I think for the most part, my core values have not changed. I do think the communication level has changed when it comes to me and my kids. I don't think things were off limits as far as my parents were concerned. It's just that they were not talked about, so I didn't know where to go or how to navigate that. Whereas my children, again, being a sexuality and intimacy coach, has there's a certain amount of vulnerability that you have to allow with your people. And like I said, my especially, I'm very proud of my older kids, because my first four are boys, and they know they can come to me with anything, and it may be cringeworthy because they're teenage boys,
Right, I couldn't imagine.
I just had that look on my face like, okay, we finished. but they know they can come to me about anything, and they've encouraged friends to come to me as well, because they know that I'm, at the end of the day, I'm going to give you the advice that you need, but I'm also give you the nurturing that may go along with it. And they may look like me fussing at you, but that I'm giving you, the support that you need without you feeling like you need to go to another source that may not be as knowledgeable. So I do love that part. And then to the new mom, I was like, oh, that's so cute. She said the best parts of you, child, they take the worst parts of you too. And they magnify that.
That they do.
Yes, because I always say, oh, you sneaky. Oh yeah, I was sneaky too. Okay. So,
Right.
But I love the fact that, she wants to pour into her children and everything. And I can say as a first-time mom, I felt like, sacrifices were the way to go, and that, things had to be made at this point in my life because I am super seasoned, like a good piece of chicken.
A good piece of chicken.
Good piece of chicken, says the vegetarian. But
right. That's what I was gonna say.
Like I'm a whole vegetarian. But anyway,
Right.
But I think at this point, I'm no longer willing to sacrifice because of what I've learned over the years is that when I sacrifice for my children, I'm sacrificing a lot of their future. So at some point, I've learned balance because the word sacrifice is one of those words that bother me. And I even tell this to my clients and everything. I like the word compromise. I don't even like compromise. I like what was the word I always tell them? Agreement.
Mm-hmm.
You have to change your agreements.
Right.
Because sacrifice and compromise means that somebody's losing to me. And so for us to have a whole and complete relationship with our children, not necessarily sacrifice, I think sometimes we just have to learn how to reprioritize because I want to feel like I have it all. And I know everybody say, well, you can't have it all, but you can. It's just, it's what level you're willing to accept. So I'm no longer sacrificing. So I'm like, y'all, I'm going on out of town trips and bye. So
there you go.
No sacrificing that. Not my sanity. No, I need that. So.
No doubt about it. Heather Blue's my guest here on episode 151, this special edition, Mother's Day edition of the Minding Your Business podcast. So Heather, as we wrap up and you giving us some great rich content, I definitely appreciate your stories and your insight and your wisdom and expertise. You talked some earlier about some best practices, for mothers. Talk about, just from your perspective, again, there's, people are listening to this and they're coming from all walks of life and all different experiences. You have those that never knew their mother. They never met her, never laid eyes on her other than when they were first born. You've got folks that obviously their mother is transition life. You've got those that just never had the relationship with their mother. Again, you have those that their children unfortunately have transitioned life, and today is a very tough day, and it's a stark reminder. Again, all across the gambit, you and I could probably sit here for hours and come up with every single scenario that people may or may not have been through. But I think, encompassing all of that, what's kind of your overall message, to mothers on today, particularly of encouragement, for those that are going through all the 1,001, scenarios out there?
I definitely want to say, to the moms out here, we all do the best. We really do present our best foot, and I don't think that anything that we do is to intentionally do anything harmful to our children. So I just want to tell all my moms out there, lay off of yourself sometimes, to my moms that are actively in motherhood with our young people. Sometimes everything is not packaged in the way that we want it to be packaged, but just know on the other end of it, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I do want to send a special shout out to my moms in waiting. Those who are either looking to adopt, those who have had struggles with fertility. Just because the child is not physically in your arms does not mean that you're not a mother. I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a mother. And I think that the desire to be a mother makes you a And I will say, through my motherhood struggles, I don't know if they were struggles. Oh, yeah, they were struggles. But we've been through it. We've been through several scenarios. One of the things I don't talk about a lot is I suffered a few miscarriages. Actually, one as recently as last year.
Okay.
And so I know that takes a different toll on your spirit when you
Yeah.
feel like everything that you've done still wasn't good enough to bring that child into this world. And so to those moms, again, your miracle is waiting for you. And so you just have to be ready for it, and be okay. Sometimes, we just have to embrace ourselves during that time a little bit more, because a lot of times we look at what we did wrong in order to make that happen. There's nothing wrong, on our end. It's just that, nature sometimes does what it needs to do. For those who have, little to no relationship with your mom, if you're able to reach out. It's really that simple. And if you can't, then be who you wanted to be with your mom, with someone else, maybe mentor someone. Sometimes, your healing may come in being that role model for someone else who desires. I don't know what happened.
I know. Yeah, keep going. No, you're fine. I don't know what
It's
happened,
okay.
but
I don't know what
the
happened.
technology does it like that sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and that's the thing. And I just want to say, overall, for everyone, I think that we all, especially during this time, I think we have to be a little bit more introspective and be a little bit more compassionate with ourselves and with other people. And I think that with all of that together, we might actually be all right.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. I think at the end of the day, yes, we will be all right. I love that. Just your message and the spirit around what you said, Heather. And I'll add to this. I think in regards to the subject of people's relationships with their mother, those run across the gambit. And if you didn't live that life of that individual, you really can't. None of us can speak to the impact of that. So
Right.
I've learned to try not to do that. The only thing that I do say to ladies who may have struggled with that relationship or struggled with the relationship with their own children, one of the worst things I think we can all do, and I'll speak about this even more so because it applies to fathers big time. Don't allow her past, her being your mother, if you had the tough relationship with her, don't allow her past and her energy to become yours. One of the
Right.
worst things that people do, and all of us are guilty of this if we're willing to admit at different times, is it's when you allow someone else to put batteries in your back and kind of control you from that standpoint. So like you say, your mother's approach and her temperament and her energy, that's hers. Let that be hers.
Right.
When you take that and make it yours. And again, it's like I said earlier, people may say, well, I don't talk like she talks, or I don't say the things that she said. But if you bring that same energy, and then if you allow her to control you by controlling your mood and controlling your joy and your outlook on life, then that's then where it becomes the issue. When you're grown, you're grown. You deal with her however you choose you're going to deal with her. Right.
Right.
But you don't have to be negative or disrespectful, because that energy then gets carried into your life. Right. And that's that generational piece of it that then continues to get perpetuated. For it to stop, I think, you have to make a conscious decision that, yes, we didn't have the best relationship. She may not have been the most loving. She may not have, there's a laundry list of what she didn't do. All right. And then there may be some positive things that she did do.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like you say, I'm not going to let that be, I'm not going to carry that around to where it's, now a part of my life. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how often you go to church. You can go to church every Sunday. You can sing in the choir. You can pray. Because some people hold on to that malice and those grudges.
Yeah.
But then they want to go and they want to go to church and ask everybody to forgive them. So how does that work?
It don't.
Some people hold on to grudges. When you had your first child, there's someone out there listening to this now who's holding a grudge from that time.
Yeah.
That probably can't even remember why the hell they got a grudge.
Why they got a grudge.
But they're holding grudges from their 20th century grudges. It's like watching the Michael Jordan documentary, and Michael Jordan still, these guys going on 60 years old, and they still hot about something 30 years ago, 35 years ago. You know what I mean?
And
they're still
eating
hot
up
about
all
it.
of their lives with that. And that's the thing, is that you're cheating your own life by being upset about something that happened so long ago. And if you let it go.
Yeah,
and if you can't let it go, let everybody else go. Let the people go at least.
Yeah, let the people go. Yeah, exactly. And then, like you say, move forward, but don't carry the energy.
You don't have to carry that
energy.
And
that's easier said than done, because again,
Yeah.
every situation is different, Heather. And some people had, unfortunately, abusive mothers who were abusive physically or abusive, even sexually, abusive verbally, and they may not have felt like they had that kind of support particularly when it comes from someone like that. So again, I can't speak to any of that, not being in everybody's household at that time. Like I said, the biggest thing I say is don't carry that, don't pay that forward. Don't pay that piece forward. And don't allow that to then get incorporated with how you deal with your own children. And like I say, again, we're going to speak to this some on Father's Day, because this is a big thing. With fathers carrying along, or men carrying along, that pain and those hatreds and those past disappointments, carrying that on with how they deal with mothers and their women and their children and even the rest of their their life. And so and
the emotions too, and the emotions that they've not learned to express in a positive manner.
Yeah.
So yes.
Exactly. On the other side, my heart goes out to women who have had children transition life. I've had that in my family. Many people have either experienced that or had that in their family. So this is a day where my heart goes out and thinks of those folks. And I think anybody that has children that are healthy, that they're able to see and have a relationship with, should really be thankful for that. And really hold that in deep reverence, Heather, because again, you don't have to look far for people that right now would give anything in their possession just to get a hug from their child again.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when a lot of us are, people are fussing about being with their children during quarantine and having to be a homeschool teacher. And again, there's frustration. Again, it doesn't discount that there's frustrations in the moment and the time, things you got to deal with. So it doesn't mean you can't have any of that. It's just, take a step back and think about, again, those people that would love nothing other than to be at home with their children. And to see them again, those sons, those daughters, those grandchildren. I've had, family members and friends where I've been to, funerals, of young people, and seeing that little casket is no, listen,
it's not a good feeling.
No.
It's
and
not.
So my heart goes out to those folks, people who have, their mothers have already transitioned, and, I've been told that that's just something that's difficult to get over. Again, sometimes depending on your relationship and that sort of thing, but my heart goes out to those people too, where this day's another reminder of, the end of life on this side for a mother, and their life on another side. And so again, I want to make sure I shouted that out on the podcast, because there's a myriad of different people that listen, and they come from a myriad of different backgrounds, Heather. And I always want to make sure that we show that we're thinking, of those folks as well. And so shout out to all of you. I hope that you find comfort and peace and strength during this time, whether it's recently and it just happened, or it's been some time. It doesn't matter. I don't care if your mother passed away 100 years ago.
It still hurt.
It still hurt. I'll share with you a kind of a positive story. Heather, was when I was in banking, and this was when my wife Kim was pregnant with my oldest daughter Madison, who's 10.
You have a Madison too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a Madison, a Tatum, and a Sydney. And So yeah, so Matt, she's pregnant with Madison, and this lady comes into my office. I was managing the branch here in Memphis, Tennessee. This lady, Heather, comes into my office. This lady's well into her 90s. I mean, but she drives up. I mean, she's got all her motor skills. I mean, she's sharp as a tack now. And she was born in Germany. And she was coming in to do some bank business. She comes in to see me. We're talking. I'm taking care of what she's asking me to take care of. And, we're talking family and stuff. And I told her I was excited about, becoming a dad, and my wife was pregnant. We're looking any these next couple of weeks is going to change for me. And she said something that's always stuck with me. Her oldest son at that time was in his 70s. And she said, Mr. Brooks, let me tell you something. My oldest, I think he might've been like 73 or 74. And she referred to him as her baby, which blew me away. I was like, baby, shoot, that man got high blood pressure and everything. Everything, he got, he's up there now, but
right.
But she said, no, that's my baby. And I remember the day he was born. She's like, I still remember that. It's like, I couldn't tell you what I did this morning, but I could tell you everything about the day he was born. She said, you will always remember that. She said, if there's anything you can take away, is that you will always be there, for your daughter, and do your absolute best with her. Doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. Doesn't mean that there won't be tough times and things like that's going to happen for everybody. You stick around.
Right.
The only time tough times don't happen for folk is they dead or they do nothing. Right. And so she was like, she was looking forward to going to see him. She had not seen him in about 6 months or so. And so she was looking forward to go see her baby, who was having she's having some health issues. And then he was, but they were experiencing that somewhat together, which but she said she'll always remember that day. And that's always stuck with me, for someone that, and I don't know, there's no way for me to know if this lady's still around. I wouldn't be shocked either way as hell. She still drove. She drove up in a Cadillac, to the branch. Now she wasn't half step. This lady had to be in her mid-90s, Heather, and talked about her 70-something-year-old baby, baby, and how she was looking forward to seeing her baby boy.
That's awesome.
And at this time, I'm 28, 29, having my first one. I was like, baby boy. But yeah, that was, it doesn't change. And
it doesn't change.
She could talk about his whole life, from sports to little boy, coming from Germany to America, and him going to college, all the different things, right? His marriages, his divorces, his, everything. And she said, it's all to the good, and that always stuck with me. That story she shared, and kind of her relationship with her son, even after all those years and decades. And so, I think, again, that's something we should take with us, is the positivity. And I think when we learn to be loving, towards each other, even in the face of setbacks and mistakes. And again, sometimes parents, like you say, there's no coaching, there's no master class on it, and people do make mistakes and they come short. And I think if we can have a forgiving spirit, doesn't mean we have to forget, doesn't mean we have to accept BS, right?
Right.
But it also means that we have a loving spirit, and we can take the same positive energy with the same zeal that we do with negativity.
Right.
With the same zeal, we can also be loving. And
absolutely.
I think if we can do that, and like you said, as stigmas go away, I love what you said about with young mothers and with people, be a support, offer yourself, true, loving support. And stop the judgmental piece. Stop trying to count. You still get people now today, they try to count, you get these folks, sometimes they're real churchy, and so when did you get married, and how old is the baby, and they start doing the math in their head. Okay, the baby 11, y'all got married 9 years ago, so
what happened?
The baby's out of wedlock,
Yeah, right.
And people get so caught up into that. They get so caught up in the negativities and the past and all that. And I would just encourage everybody to, again, operate in the positivity.
Yeah.
as best
Let
as
me also say this too,
yeah.
because you were just speaking about that. Sometimes your journey, and I always say this, I think I was selected, and I always tell people, I think I was selected to
Mm,
be a mom in college so that I could stand in the gap for someone else later on in
mm,
my life. And
mm,
so I don't take, that lightly,
right.
because, sometimes you need somebody that has experienced what you experienced in a way that you can be helpful to someone else. So sometimes your job, sometimes it's just your chosen duty and path to experience that so you can stand in the gap for someone else so that they won't experience what you experience. And then
Yeah.
the other thing I wanted to add was that as mothers, as parents, we need to learn how to apologize to our children when we're wrong.
Talk about it now.
Okay. Okay. And I do it a
Yeah.
lot. I say that a lot of times, especially to my older kids, because like I told her, I was in my 20s when I had y'all, so I don't know what happened. they let me have kids early, whoever they is.
Right.
But
They.
apologize. I think
Mm,
it goes a long way. It carries a lot of weight when you, as the parent, as the head adult in your child's life, are able to come to them and apologize and
yes.
be really, you don't have to be all grovelly and whatever, but you need to show them that there is something to be said. There's a strength in admitting that you don't get it right all the time. And
Right.
then that also opens up a different type of relationship for them. I just wanted to say those two.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that. That's a great way to cap this off. Is the ability and the strength and the courage.
Mm,
Because sometimes as adults we lose that childhood energy, and we think
yeah,
you gotta do it my way and I'm always right. I've never we give off this aura like we don't make mistakes, we're not human, and you're not allowed to feel and have emotion, and I'm the mother, and you should do honor your mother.
right.
We pull out the Bible verse on folks real quick. um so yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's a great way to sum all this up, is to be forgiving, and when you've done wrong, even by your children, or you
Hmm.
make a mistake, let them see that process of
Right.
how to ask for forgiveness and to share, hey, I would do that differently.
Hmm.
um, and I ask for your forgiveness, and here's what I'll do differently going forward, and that
Right.
teaches them that maturity
Hmm.
early on, that then permeates the rest of their life. At
Yes.
least that's what you
Yes.
hope. So yeah. So listen, Heather Blue, I can't thank you enough. I want you to go enjoy. I hope you have a beautiful Mother's Day,
Thank you.
and beyond. um, and thank you so much for taking time out on Mother's Day of all days to join here on the Minding Your Business podcast. And you know where I am, so you can find me easy. So make sure you holler
Okay.
at me. Before we go though, how can people get in touch with you? And then I know at some point you go launch the podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to launch a podcast. We got to talk about that.
Yeah.
But if you're on Facebook and Instagram, Heather's Passion Academy is where I post not just information about sexuality and intimacy, but I also post funny memes because that's just who I am. but And also, I just launched my new website, heatherspassionacademy.com, so you can get more information on sexuality and intimacy coaching, whether it's for individuals, couples, or group settings. So you can do sexual vision board parties, or you can do just group counseling. And we have all that information posted on heatherspassionacademy.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And MYB Community, what Heather just mentioned, is going to be in the show notes. So make sure you'll be able to click there, go and check everything out. Communicate with her if you're serious about learning more in relation to sexuality and intimacy. It's extremely important to
Very
all
much.
relationships. And again, if you're serious, now if you're just playing, and all that, don't wear out Heather about it if you're just playing now. Be for real. If you're really
Please.
serious, and if you're working through an issue, you got something positive to share, please do that, and let her know that you heard her right here on the Minding Your Business podcast. So Heather, listen, happy Mother's Day to you, girl.
Thank you.
Same to you, to your family and the mothers in your family, and
And
we'll
happy
talk again
Mother's
soon.
Day to your wife.
Yep, thank you so much. Yep, I definitely appreciate it. Listen, go enjoy, girl. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
All right. All right, y'all. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast. This was a special Mother's Day episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. Definitely happy Mother's Day to all the women and women figures out there, those that have helped rear young people and have been motherly supports, even to people who are adults and need that motherly support. It doesn't get done without you. And I refer to you all as royalty. That's why I'm not big into the queen title. That's a title. But the reason that she's the queen, the reason you reverence her as the queen is because she's royalty. All right. So that's why I refer to women as royalty. All right. Enjoy all that is to come in positivity to your life. And we'll check you out here on the next episode. Champ Ron, the Mind Your Business podcast.